What happens when a secret affair doesn't just blow up a marriage, but breaks the internet? This is a story about a uniquely modern kind of hell, where a private betrayal becomes a public spectacle. It's a drama we've all seen play out in different forms across social media, on Reddit, on TikTok, on anonymous forums. It's a story of love, friendship, and one devastating decision that spiraled into a viral witch hunt. To understand how a personal crisis can become global entertainment, we're going to trace a story that feels eerily familiar because it's a composite, an archetype of our times, pieced together from countless digital confessions. For our story, we'll call the three people at the center of this storm Jenna, her husband Mark, and her best friend Sarah. Their story is a chilling look at how the line between a private life and public property has been all but erased. Imagine a friendship so deep it feels like family. Now imagine betraying that bond in the most painful way possible. The real nightmare, though, doesn't start with the secret. It starts when the secret gets out. What happens when a private confession meant for 3 people gets amplified to an audience of 3 million, all screaming for justice? This is the story of how a hidden affair became a public crucifixion. On the surface, Jenna, Mark, and Sarah were the picture of modern friendship. Jenna and Sarah had been inseparable since college. The kind of friends who finished each other's sentences and shared a wardrobe. Their bond was the bedrock of their social lives. So when Jenna met Mark, it was Sarah who gave the final, enthusiastic seal of approval. And when they got married, Sarah was right there as the maid of honor, giving a tearful speech about a love she'd watched from the very beginning. For years, the three of them were a unit. They took vacations together, hosted holiday parties, and spent Sundays lounging in Jenna and Mark's backyard. Sarah wasn't just a friend. She was an honorary family member, the fun-loving aunt to Jenna and Mark's 2 young kids. She was there for the births, the birthdays, the scraped knees. She was trusted completely. This is exactly why a betrayal like this is so devastating. Infidelity is already a profound violation. But when it involves a best friend, the destruction is quadrupled. It's not just the marriage that's broken, it's the entire social foundation. Jenna, the one betrayed, gets hit by 2 wrecking balls at once. Her partner and her confidant, the 2 people she would have run to for support, are now the source of her deepest pain. The very person she would have cried to about her husband's affair was the one having it. Perfect lives are usually a carefully constructed illusion. And behind this happy facade, hairline fractures were starting to show. Mark and Jenna's marriage had settled into a comfortable, but monotonous routine. 2 careers and 2 kids had replaced late-night talks with exhausted silence. They were great co-managers of a small, chaotic business called their family, but they were no longer a passionate couple. It was in this slow drift that Mark started seeing Sarah in a new light. She was the fun one, a portal to a time when life was simpler. While Jenna was understandably tied up with family logistics, Sarah was the one suggesting a spontaneous drink on a Tuesday. The emotional affair began where it always does, in the quiet, in-between moments. A conversation that lingered a little too long after Jenna went to bed. A text that was a little too personal. It started with shared frustrations. Mark would confide in Sarah about the distance he felt from Jenna. And Sarah, instead of redirecting him back to his wife, would listen. It's a strange psychological twist. But sometimes people who have affairs have suppressed their own needs for so long they begin to feel entitled to a secret source of validation. In Mark's eyes, Sarah was someone who saw him again. For Sarah, it was just as intoxicating. She was the one he turned to, the one who understood him in a way his own wife seemingly didn't. This slow burn of emotional intimacy creates a powerful, secretive bond that feels bigger than both of them. A dangerous myth that lets them off the hook for the boundary they are about to demolish. The line between an emotional affair and a physical one is often just a matter of opportunity. For Mark and Sarah, that opportunity came during a weekend trip to a friend's cabin. Jenna was supposed to be there, but one of the kids got a fever. "You 2 go," she'd said over the phone. "Have fun for me. You both deserve a break." Those words, meant with pure love and trust, would come back to haunt them all. That night, fueled by wine and months of charged intimacy, the unspoken became spoken. The lingering glances became touches. The boundary wasn't just crossed, it was obliterated. In the aftermath came that toxic cocktail of guilt, shame, and exhilaration. They made a pact. It was a one-time mistake that could never happen again. They would bury it for Jenna's sake. But secrets this big have their own gravity. The affair didn't end. It went underground. The one-time mistake became a series of calculated risks, clandestine meetings, and a web of lies that grew more complex by the day. The mental gymnastics required to maintain a double life like this are exhausting. Every interaction with Jenna became a performance. Every shared memory was now tainted. For Sarah, seeing her best friend, listening to her talk about her life, completely unaware of the betrayal, was a kind of psychological torture. A torment she willingly chose over and over. They convinced themselves they could compartmentalize it, acting as if nothing had happened while living a lie that was now the central principle of their lives. The guilt became unbearable for Sarah. Months into the affair, suffocating under the weight of it all, she did what so many people do now. She turned to the internet for an anonymous confession. She wrote out the whole sordid story on a Reddit relationship forum. She changed the names and a few details, thinking she was safe. She was looking for absolution, maybe just screaming into the void. She got something else. The internet isn't a confessional, it's an amplifier. Her post, with its potent mix of best friend, cheating husband, and a sympathetic narrator, was pure catnip for online drama seekers. It went viral in hours. But the real fire started when someone in her extended social circle read it. The minor details weren't minor enough. They recognized the story. A screenshot of the Reddit post, along with the suspicion of who was behind it, was shared in a private Facebook group. From there it leaped to TikTok. A creator who specializes in dramatic Reddit readings narrated Sarah's confession, and that video exploded. Within 48 hours, her anonymity was gone. Internet sleuths, fueled by a sense of moral outrage, connected the dots. They found Sarah's Instagram, full of happy pictures of the trio. They found Jenna's Facebook. Their full names, their jobs, their town, it was all out there. This is how modern scandal works. It spreads at the speed of a share. And as some studies have shown, emotionally charged narratives can spread significantly faster and wider than simple facts, creating a feedback loop of pure outrage. What began as a desperate, anonymous post had mutated into a public trial by social media. The verdict was unanimous: guilty. Jenna didn't find out from Mark or Sarah. She found out when a colleague sent her a TikTok with the caption, "Isn't this your friend Sarah?" She listened in stunned horror, as a stranger narrated her life's greatest betrayal to an audience of millions. Finding out about an affair can be so traumatic that for some, it triggers a response with symptoms similar to PTSD. But to have that trauma delivered and dissected by a global audience is a unique and compounded cruelty. The digital mob descended. Sarah's and Mark's social media accounts were flooded with thousands of hateful comments and threats. It's a phenomenon some psychologists call de-individuation. The idea that in an anonymous online crowd, people lose their personal sense of responsibility, and the filter between their brain and keyboard disappears. The platform's design and group dynamics can amplify this. The consequences were swift. Sarah was forced to resign from her teaching job after the school board received hundreds of complaints. Mark was suspended from his job, which issued a public statement distancing itself from his personal behavior. Their lives were now public domain. This is the modern-day stockade, but unlike the punishments of the past, the shaming can feel global and indefinite, leaving a long and stubborn digital shadow. While some fMRI studies have shown that social rejection can activate the same brain regions as physical pain, the real pain here was the destruction of their public and professional identities. The internet mob doesn't seek reconciliation, it seeks ruin. In the smoking crater of their lives, there were no winners. Mark and Jenna's marriage was over, the divorce made infinitely more painful by the public narrative. Jenna, the victim, found herself in an impossible position. She was flooded with support, but every message was a constant, painful reminder. She had become a symbol, not a person. Her pain was public property. Sarah moved to a different state, changed her name, and deleted her entire digital footprint, a self-imposed witness protection program. Mark lost his job. They sold the house they had built their life in, unable to escape the whispers of their community. The friendship, The marriage, the careers, the home gone. The affair destroyed the foundation, but the viral spectacle bulldozed everything else. We're all so captivated by these stories because they trigger our deepest fears of betrayal. And in judging others, we feel a little more certain about our own moral compass. But that impulse has turned social media into a modern-day coliseum where we watch lives get torn apart for entertainment. We feel righteous, but we rarely consider the disproportionate trauma we inflict. The punishment rarely fits the crime, especially when the judges are an anonymous, unaccountable mob. The line between private wrongdoing and public spectacle is thinner than ever. We've all seen these stories. So what do you think? When does sharing a story cross into public shaming? Where does accountability end and mob justice begin? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you find these explorations into our complicated modern world compelling, make sure to subscribe. The story of Jenna, Mark, and Sarah is a tragedy in 2 acts. The first was a quiet, personal betrayal. The second was a loud, public spectacle of digital outrage. The affair itself was a profound wound, but the viral shaming was the salt, turning a private agony into a permanent, public scar. It forces us to ask, what is our role in the life cycle of a scandal? Do we consume it, participate in it, or do we choose restraint? Because when a private matter becomes global entertainment, the possibility of healing, understanding, or forgiveness is stolen. Our collective clicks and shares can become weapons, and that is a reality we should all be a little afraid of.